Today we're going to be going over business systems and automations and ways to make your business run smoothly. I'm going to go ahead and just give another minute or two for those who haven't made it on the webinar yet to get on, so they don't miss the beginning of it. So we'll just wait probably another minute, maybe two max, and then we'll get started. And I'll introduce you to Curt, and he'll take it away from there. All right, it looks like we've had a few more people join, so we will go ahead and get started. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to make Curt the presenter, and so that he can go through. I want to introduce you to Curt. He is a lot like all of us. He started out, creating his own business. He's an entrepreneur, and he started at first. His first business was a window cleaning business in the service industry, like most of us are. And as he was building his business, he came across ways that he could make it better, ways that he could automate it, so that everything would run efficiently, so that his customers would get the same treatment no matter who was taking care of them, whether it was him or whether it was his employees. So again, he's a small business owner, but what he's also done is he's been able to automate his business and make it successful, and he's been able to start other businesses. He also owns a software company called ResponsiBid, which has some amazing products, and he's also a speaker. He travels around the country, and he speaks about this very topic, about automating businesses, systemizing what you're doing, and just making your business run smoother overall, and making sure that no matter who is doing the task in the business, it's going to be done the exact same way. And that's really important when you start to bring more employees into your business. So let's see, we'll go ahead and make Curt a presenter here, and then we'll get started with his presentation.
All right, cool. Thanks, Troy. Can you guys hear me okay? Everything okay? I'm going to assume so. I have this this huge fear that someday I'm going to get to the end of like a 1-hour presentation and everybody will come up and say, I couldn't hear a word you said. So I hate talking to myself. But I think everything looks good here. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. And Troy's right. I am definitely way into small business. My passion is with small business. I actually didn't find that out until I got into my own small business and realized that the work itself was fine, and I don't mind going out and sweating. In fact, every once in a while I do go out and sweat along with my guys, and it feels phenomenal. But where my real passion is with the customer experience. In fact, when I started my window cleaning company, 5-Star Window Care, our saying was, we're a customer service company that happens to do windows. At the time, I didn't know that. I had no clue what that meant. I just thought it meant that I was really nice. And over the course of time, I did find out what that meant, and that was really powerful and impactful for me. And someday I'll have to tell you all about it. But the point is that I discovered a book early in my business called The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber, and I immediately became a huge fan of all things Michael Gerber. So any of you that haven't read that book, I would highly encourage you to, but basically what it does, it talks about how to systematize the customer experience. And then I kind of started exploring what that meant, and he also introduces the principle of gamification, which is turning your business into a game that your employees enjoy playing. And I just kind of started taking my own take on it and realizing as I branched out that people who go into other people's homes or businesses, as opposed to having like a store that people come into, it really kind of changes the game, but it makes it, I think, a lot more fun. So with all that said, I've already said I'm really into the customer experience, and because I am a huge proponent of the fact that systems are the key to making sure that your customers have an awesome time interacting with your business. So I'm going to try and stay out of the really deep details in order to make this as powerful as possible. What I'm hoping we do is stir some ideas inside of you. Maybe some examples I give you will help stir some examples in your own mind, what you could be doing. But even more important than that is the principles that I share with you. I hope that it will directly relate to some actual items that you can do to either tweak your business or possibly even start something new. So we'll start off with talking about how business owners oftentimes are under the impression that they own a business because of the title business owner, but what they really find is that actually they're owned by a job, right? And this job never goes away. It follows you home. It follows you on all your weekends, on your vacations. Luckily, we have these smartphones that make it so we can never leave our jobs. And because our customers kind of own us, you know, we kind of feel at mercy to our customers or our employees or whatever. What happens is that this business that we own actually is choking us out all the time, as this picture kind of shows. So we want to try and not have that happen to us, of course. And I would say that one of the biggest contributing factors to that is the fact that we end up making a lot of decisions on the fly, day after day, within our own business. And what's crazy is that most of those decisions that we're making in our business are the same decision that we made, maybe not yesterday, but definitely within the last week, and we're redeciding it again. Or our employees are having to re-ask us for things. And so when people talk about working, there's a huge saying in the business, I'm working on my business, not in my business, kind of thing. And I know a lot of us kind of aspire to it. In fact, some of us even set aside days probably where we go out and work in the business maybe 3 days a week, and then we work on our business 2 days a week. Some people have even structured it that way. And you know, I'm not saying there's a right or wrong way about it, but what we're going to be focusing on today is when you're working on your business, what are the best things that you can be doing? And hopefully a lot of them will remove you from being the bottleneck of the company where decisions have to run through you or through certain key people within your business, because the principles will guide it. So we want to make sure that if you were incapacitated, and I think this is a really kind of terrible thing to think about, but just imagine if you were in the hospital for, I don't know, let's just say that you're in the hospital for a month, but heaven forbid it was even worse. Could your business even be there when you get back out of the hospital? And the reason that that's a really important thing to think about is because it actually could happen. Again, God forbid, but it could happen. And so let's talk about games for a minute. Let's change the mood here for a second and not talk about being in the hospital. So a lot of people look at their business as like a battleground, and it's easy to understand why a business owner would think that, because typically when you're in your business, there's like fires going off all over the place. Just, you know, somebody's asking for a discount and they're being rude to your office manager, or you're out in the job and something just broke and your carpet cleaning machine broke down, or of course there's always bills like payroll. That's a big one, but you know, stuff breaks down. You don't get to decide when stuff goes wrong. In fact, a couple months ago, one of my guys broke down on the freeway in Phoenix, Arizona, and I had to stop everything and figure out how to get this to a shop. The office had to figure out how to reschedule the day without ticking anybody off. Of course, everyone's always on a tight timeline, and then you get your services done right away. And so it just reminded me how easy those fires, you start your day, everything's going great, and then a phone call happens, and boom, it's not great anymore. So that battleground mentality is easy to adopt. But what I want to talk about is gamifying your business. And I'm going to do a quick analogy here with basketball. And by no means would I consider myself the best basketball player in the world, but I did see the NBA Finals a few years back, so I think I'm qualified to talk about this. So on a basketball court, if you really look at if you scale it down to like what it really is, and that is at the human level, there's a bunch of people sprinting around inside of a box, jumping as high as they can, coming down, trying to, just running back and forth on the court. It's actually pretty chaotic, and there's a lot of calories being burned with a lot of motion that may or not make sense. Like if you were from another planet and you watched people on a basketball court and you didn't understand the rules of it or what the boundaries were for or what the different lines on the court meant or what the point system was, you would just think that these people are just crazy, chaotic people. And I think our businesses probably look a lot like that. But the difference is that I could go meet a complete stranger out in a park this weekend, and as long as there's a court with painted lines and there's hoops at the end, and one of us has a ball that's got some air in it, the two of us could become really good friends really fast and actually almost immediately be able to speak the same language and have fun together, which is amazing if you think about it. If you really go back to that human element of what basketball really is, it's just two people, or even in a full basketball game, 10 people running up and down a court, jumping up and down, and that's it. So let's talk about the lines for a second in that metaphor. The boundary lines are what make the game fun. Like if you didn't have an out of bounds and you were playing basketball and someone just went running off like a mile in one direction in order to avoid all the people on the field and they thought they'd somehow get back to the basket, it wouldn't be fun. Like it would actually be horrendous, right? And if we didn't have like a free throw, like if we could hack each other all the time, then we wouldn't have fun with that either, because it would be more like MMA than it would be with eye gouging, right? But then it would be basketball. So we want to make sure that it's actually fun to go out and play this game. So we draw these lines and we say don't go outside of these lines, and then we make rules and we say don't hack the person as they jump in the air and like hit them in the arm or shove them or whatever. And then we say, and your ball has to go through a hoop that has this constraint, this size, and it's 10 feet up in the air. So by doing that, it's so crazy to think about, but actually adding those limits is what's making the game fun. And I know that as a people pleaser, a lot of us think don't put things in people's way because you'll be restricting them. But actually, that's the exact opposite, is that if you can make rewards tied to certain goals, right? In the case of a basketball game, that's the hoop, then now all of a sudden we're in a place where we can make something that's really enjoyable. So our business has certain rules and regulations, and I don't know if we've defined those at all for our employees or not, but that's like where we want to start, is if we're going to have any fun with our employees, we have to draw lines, we have to know where the basket is, what the goals are, and we have to even get to the point where we're making up plays that makes our company have a unique selling proposition. So here's the play that we run at our company, and that's what makes our employees so freaking awesome, right? And that's the approach we've taken at 5-Star Window Care. And pretty much with anything I've done in my life, I've tried to make the differentiating factor just far ahead. By when I walk onto the pickup game, I've got 5 guys with me that know exactly these really cool, stunning plays. They look like globetrotters, right? So we as business owners have to change our vision of ourselves. We're the coach, right? And that doesn't mean that the coach can't play on the field if necessary. When your business is small, everybody plays. In fact, there may be a time where you're the coach, team captain, and the water boy, and that's just how it's going to be, right? And that's okay. That's why small businesses start. So it's not just okay, it's actually awesome. But sometimes I think as the coach, the player, and the water boy, we start to feel like we just have this big blob of stuff that has to get done. And that's dangerous. We're going to talk a little bit about separation and division. But where I'd like to go with this is that you're not just the coach, you actually kind of get to create the game. So maybe you don't get to create how carpet is cleaned or how pressure washing gets done, or how landscaping is done. That's kind of already been invented, and you may be able to improve upon it to a certain degree. But the law of nature is that you need to get the dirt out of the carpet in order for the carpet to be clean, or a stain out of the carpet, right? So we get that, I think all of us get that, and you won't be able to really invent that part. But as far as the employee's interaction with the customers go, as far as your interaction with them, as far as what makes them a great employee or not, so, go back to the basketball analogy, what makes a really great center is that you're not just tall, but that you are really good at rebounding, or that you are still really quick on your feet, right? And you have good body control. Like, just because you're tall doesn't mean you're not like really gangly and knocking people over. So we as the coach get to kind of design the game as far as what boundaries everyone needs to stay in. And then we tell our employees, this is what a basket looks like. Let me shoot a couple of them for you. Here's the hoop, and here's how big it is. And in our business, that might be, here's how many customers we're going to see in the day. Here's what clean carpet looks like. Here are some rules we never break. We would never walk into somebody's house without booties on, for example. Or we would never smoke on a job site. Or just whatever it is that you make. Maybe the thing you do is you always smoke on a job site. I don't know. And frankly, I don't care, because I don't think it matters to me, because it's your game. You get to create your own environment. So let's say that you as the game maker and the coach, you're going to be kind of designing this whole experience. You are going to have very intimate and often conversations with employees, letting them know where things are at and how we do certain things. So how we do certain things, that's where the automation comes into play. Now, I'm going to use automation and the word systematization interchangeably. And the reason I'm going to do that is not because they mean the same thing necessarily, but in the context of what I'm talking about, they kind of do. And that's because a system is something that works in a consecutive order to make sure that things happen. Now, sometimes it's an employee that's making it happen. Sometimes it's going to be a computer that makes it happen. And sometimes it'll be the weather that makes something happen, right? Your car, when you turn the key, there's a system, there's an ignition system that starts your car, right? And it's automated after you turn the key. So once you kind of have that definition down, we can talk about the word automation, and I want to really emphasize the fact that it's not a dirty word. So automation, a lot of people think that means robotic. So if you send your employees into someone's house and you give them a script of what they have to say, you're afraid that your employees are going to say, hello, Mrs. Jones, I am here to clean your carpets, or whatever, and I am going to read this thing to you and not be able to listen to a word you say. You have the telemarketers that call you, and they're like talking to you. And in fact, when I used to answer our phones, I used to actually have fun with them, because I would ask them questions that would have nothing to do with their script in order to just freak them out. And in that case, automation is a dirty word, I think, because personality is the essence of life. It's what makes it fun to interact with other people. So for me, automation is taking the principles of all the things that you absolutely know will guide a great experience, and then allowing the dots in between to be filled in. So my car has a fuel injection system, but it doesn't necessarily care if I'm putting in the super expensive unleaded or like the cheap unleaded, right? It'll just kind of deal with whatever it's given, and but to a certain extent, right? And so it's kind of the same thing with your business. And to go back to the basketball example, you want your system to be able to work with a variety of personalities, and everybody's different. I mean, even if people have similar personalities, they're still different, right? So automation has to have that breathing room, and systemization has to have that breathing room. So one of the things that I would really venture for you to spend some time thinking about is, do you want a cool vibe to be part of your company's experience that your customer is given? And if a cool vibe is what you want, then you figure out a way to put that in, right? I know that a lot of people have a fear that their customer would have a big fear if the owner didn't show up. I mean, I'm talking to the owner operators right now. A lot of people think my business would fail if I didn't show up to every job. My customers are relying on me showing up. Well, whether or not that's true, it should really concern you, because number one is, obviously I use the hospital example later, as far as, if you're in the hospital, your business is gone, right? But the other fear is that your business is going to have an climactic ending. Your people become attached to you. You grow, you grow, you grow, and your legacy will die with you. And maybe that doesn't concern you, and if it doesn't, then okay. I mean, you're free to have that. But my concern is that if you die and your business doesn't have a way of continuing going on, then your impact on this world is going to be self-limiting. And I don't think I've never met anybody who wants their business to crescendo and then stop. So consider that. Okay, so we as business owners tend to be the guy who goes out and just fixes everything, right? So we go out and we're wrestling with everything, and we're as tough as Chuck Norris because we can do everything. And we even take on the personality sometimes of, if you can't, you can't trust anybody. If you want something done right, you have to do it yourself. So you go out with your guns blazing, and there's an issue. Let me take that away from you. You go and take stuff out of your employees' hands and just let me do this for you. And I don't know if there's oftentimes kangaroos that need their heads kicked off, but I just thought that was a funny picture. But in all seriousness, you end up being the Superman of your business, okay? And that's both the bad thing and the really awesome thing right now. What we're talking about is that you have a really good handle on the parts of your business that are very dependent upon you, and you can take yourself from that Superman Chuck Norris type role and start writing on paper. And what I did when I initially really figured out what it meant to be a customer service company that happened to do windows, I got out a legal pad of paper and I filled up 5 pages of all the things that I thought my employees were either A, too incompetent to handle, or B, that would never just be able to leave outside of my realm. Once I got on all that, then I actually started making a list of all the things my employees were currently doing that I absolutely hated. So those 3 things were a really great starting point. And I know I kind of got a little silly there with the Chuck Norris example, but like, this is serious stuff. Like, what is it that your employees can't do or really suck at doing that you want to have some sort of impact on? With all that said, it's important to understand that your employees are as human as they come, okay? So, and that's just because everybody is, right? Human nature says we're going to do this. So if you had a hamburger store and you didn't tell anybody how to build a hamburger, you just like kind of had the ingredients in there, and maybe there's not even anyone in there checking inventories on it or not. Human nature is to just take the easiest route out. And I am sure that at some point, if there was no check or no balance, if you just left employees on their own, this is the kind of burger that would start going over the counter. No patty, just bun, right? And you can see this bun's even toasted. I doubt that would even happen, right? Because people are just going to do the bare minimum of what they have to do. And what's funny about that is that people love systems. Human nature is that we love to do things a certain way. And you as a business owner probably more than anyone understand that, because you get rewarded and penalized by your customers by how well things get done. So you start finding systems of ways to kind of get things done. But the employees, they're more incentivized by a paycheck. So what ends up happening is there's this disconnect. The business owner goes, my employees suck, and no one can do it as good as I can, but this is why. I really think about things, and I build systems to get things done, but my people, they build systems of their own. And it's true. They totally do. Think about some of the systems that your employees are doing right now that are bad systems. It's the habit forming things, right? When Ray Kroc started McDonald's, he outlined a way for people to make his burgers. And if you look at the distance between 2 points, one is ingredients, and then point B is delivering a hamburger to the customer. Ray Kroc, he outlined how the pickles should set on top of the bun so they don't fall off, and and this is back to the E-method talking about this stuff. But whether or not you like McDonald's burgers, that's totally irrelevant. The point is that he didn't just go from point A to point B. He had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 points along that line that would ensure that when you got to point B, it was exactly what he wanted. And employees, ironically, absolutely love that, because it gives them something measurable that they can tell, when it's working. The other neat thing is that if you outlines outline all 10 points between point A and point B, you'll know when things break, where to fix it, as opposed to just kind of figuring out this big blob of information. So hopefully that makes sense. But the point is that employees are going to find a way to get things done. So why not just show them the right way? Okay, so this is where legacy comes into play. Those of you who do have employees and maybe have something really successful going on with them, I know I focused a lot on employees, but I think it's because that's where systems really manifest themselves as in the employee. The cool thing is that if your employees are incentivized and work out the way that you would want them to, you actually are building a way to have you carbon copied in multiple places every single day. And I know that might even sound a little bit weird, but I think anyone who's had an employee understands that the representation of your employee on the job site, and I've always looked at it this way, my business is an extension of who I am personally. So if I send an employee out to a job site, that person is representing my business, but they're really representing me. And that's really cool to think about, that you could be on a vacation and literally have a carbon copy of yourself in 10 different homes that day, performing at the level that you would perform, giving the customer the experience that you would want. This is the stuff that gets me really excited. You don't have to worry about whether it's going to get done right. It's always going to be up to customers' expectations, because it's up to your expectations. And if you leave it to chance, then your customers could be getting served something that you would definitely not feel good about. And this is a perfect example. This burger, I know it's a big joke, haha, no one would really serve a burger with a tire in it, but think about how real this is for a second. This burger is almost 100% correct, except for there's a tire in it, which is 100% totally unacceptable, right? To be a little bit more graphic with you, this is the example that my parents used to use with me when I asked to see a movie. I said, Mom, it's a really good movie. It's just got this one scene in it. I don't have to look at that scene. My mom would say, so tomorrow when I serve you dinner, should I put just a little bit of bird poop in your food? I used to hate that. My mom would do that to me because she'd say it every time, and I always knew as soon as it came out of my mouth, it's just that one little part. So what about your customer's experience? Like, is there a piece of bird poop in your customer's experience? And getting it 80 to 90% correct, it's crazy to think, but that's not acceptable. Getting 80% to 90% correct is actually, in a lot of cases, totally inexcusable. So we've got to figure out, are we spinning a roulette wheel and hoping it lands on the red every single time? Or can we build a system to make sure it lands on the black or the red, or whatever number you're trying to aim at every single time? So here's the thing, it's all about execution. So hopefully, as we've been going through these topics, hopefully there's been some ideas that have come through your head. Maybe some of those ideas are new, and maybe some of those ideas are old, like ideas that you've had in the past that you're like, I know I should be doing this, I just haven't done it. And honestly, probably all of us as business owners have had that experience where we know what we should be doing, but we just don't have the time or the energy or maybe the resources or whatever. But the biggest thing is that we're all ADD, right? I mean, that's part of being the coach who's out on the court playing and out reffing the game and whatever, our own worst enemy at the same time, plus we're getting all the water for the water boy, right? So our ADD is a huge problem for us. And we beat our head against the wall because we don't have an accountability. Like, when you hire an employee, that employee supposedly is going to be accountable to us as the business owner, or in any large organization, people have the superiors. But when you own your own business, really Uncle Sam, as long as you're getting your taxes paid, you're pretty well good to go, because that's the only person who's going to hold your feet to the fire to get something done for sure. So we've got to become our own accountability. And I'm sure a lot of you guys are actually pretty good at that, but I want to ask you a question. As you look at this picture, this guy banging his head against the wall. Let me ask you this. Have you ever been in a situation that was metaphorically like this, where you had to get something done and you're banging your head against the wall, it's hard, and then you actually say, I know I'm not done with this, and I probably should finish doing this, reconciling your bank accounts, getting stuff in your accountant, getting payroll done on time, whatever, but instead of doing this thing, I'm going to go walk over to this other wall and bang my head against it, knowing that I'm banging my head against this wall, but I'm so numb right now that the enjoyment of walking over to this other wall for just a second to start banging my head is actually preferable. Have you ever had that experience? I have to believe you have, or I'm just crazy weird. But when I was having those experiences, I was realizing, and honestly, it still creeps in even today, but that experience, I think, is very indicative of somebody who is just so stressed out with all the stuff they've got to do, and they've got so many things they got to do, that their attention is being pulled in a lot of different directions. In fact, ADD is probably not even the right word for it. ADHD or ADDDDDDD, right? Because we are just so overwhelmed with what we want to do. So that list that I talked about, what if we could do a list that would allow us to know all the things that we can't stand, that if we were able to take it off of our plate, would immediately result in us being more effective, or would immediately result in us having less stress. And that's what that list did for me. And at this point, if you don't have a pen and paper out, I would encourage you to grab a pen and paper, and even if you don't start writing down specific things that are frustrating you or what you want to accomplish, would you please just make yourself a task today to just close off 30 minutes from email, 30 minutes from your phone, and just make a list of the, in 30 minutes you'll be able to surprise yourself with what you can come up with. All the stuff that's driving you crazy. Some of it you might not be able to do much about, but you can only control what you can control. But on that list, there's going to be things that you definitely can control. And by being able to make that list, you'll be able to set yourself up for the next step, which is to create some sort of an org chart. Now, this might not be something you can do today, but if you don't already have one of these for your business, this is the 5-star window care, my window cleaning company's organizational chart. Every single thing that happens in our company happens somewhere in one of those boxes. And when I started my business, guess what? I was both the president, the website manager, and the vice president of finance, right? And then my business grew, and I started being able to find a way to hire a window cleaning tech. Because for me, field work, it was just easier to hire and train somebody to do field work for me in order to bring a profit so that I could go out and focus more attention on other things. And then I found that accounts payable and accounts receivable, I really, really suck and hate that stuff. So I hired a bookkeeper to help me with that. And I was able to actually literally take sections of my business and have job descriptions for each of them, because that's what they do. And this is directly out of the E-Myth, so I'm not trying to say this is something I've invented, but I can tell you that in our business, this is probably going to look pretty similar to what your business would look like, because in the center there in operations, that's where the work out in the field gets done, and then you're probably going to find that on the sides, your marketing and your finance are probably going to be the next, areas where it'll be harder for you to delegate. But in a lot of cases, a lot of us are running businesses as an operations type person, but we take the operations part of our business, and that's where we give it away to other people, and then we try to figure out the marketing and finance when in fact maybe that's not really our strength. So this will make it a lot easier, I think, to take that list of stuff that's driving you nuts and start throwing it into categories. Some of that stuff you can hire someone to help you with it, and some of that stuff is going to land on top of employees where it's going to require more training, and some of the stuff you can just systematize the heck out of it and make it work. So this is important to help people know where their jobs begin and where they end, but it's also really important for you to figure out which systems are going to matter to you and what energies you should be expending. So here's how I dealt with it. Once I got my list and I figured out where everything kind of was falling into, and I started making actually job descriptions for each of those particular positions, then when I did get down to hiring time, which at this point I still had no employees. I got more specific with the things that drive me crazy once I did have employees. But from an initial outset, before I ever hired an employee, I had a contract for that employee to sign. It was really helpful so that they knew what they were responsible for, how their success would be measured, and what a basket would look like. So then I started saying, I'm not just going to work on my business 2 days a week. I'm going to work on my business every single day, but some days will be heavier than others. And so I started this morning ritual. And I think this is a really important thing for people to know where they're at. So every morning, how do you figure out what you're going to accomplish that day? How do you know if you're even on track? Do you just jump in onto the metaphorical treadmill and just run all day in place? Or are you taking time every morning to recenter? And that's the important thing, is to recenter. So here's what I do in my morning ritual. It's about 5 minutes long, which I think 5 minutes is reasonable to say I can start my day with 5 minutes of quiet, no email, no phone calls. If somebody had a heart attack at the beginning of my morning ritual, I still could probably be useful to them in 5 minutes. So 5 minutes I feel like is a reasonable amount of time. So I go into my office and I look at all the tasks that I didn't complete yesterday, and I figure out, are they still important? A lot of them can just go right in the garbage. I didn't complete it yesterday, but you know what? It's because it's not important, and I didn't do it, and it's not worth it. Some things that I didn't do are super important, but I put them off because I hate doing them, or whatever. Maybe I just didn't have enough time in the day. But whatever it is, I have to figure out, is this something that I can do myself today, or do I need to delegate it? Or maybe it's important, but just not right now, and I can't deal with this on today's schedule. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to push it into review for next Monday, like out in the future. And what that does for me is it makes sure that I start my day with the tasks that bled over, that need to come over today, and then I can start filling my day with the new tasks that absolutely need to get done. Now, what's important about that is that you have to give yourself something that really can be achieved that day, because you need to be able to finish each day with an empty inbox. You need to finish it with an empty to-do list, because if you don't ever have a finish line to cross, that chaos will only build and build and build. In fact, you're going to be so stressed out that it'll actually create that numbness I was talking about, that head-banging numbness, where you've got to feel like you are running through the battlefield and just murdering every problem that's in your way. Is completely destroyed by the time you're done. So think about your vision. Once you've got your to-do list for today done, then think about your vision. And you always finish your to-do list with, here's where I want to be at the end of the week, and here's where I want to be at the end of this year. I don't typically think too much further ahead than a year. Sometimes I'll think 5-year plan, stuff like that. But typically, the week and the year are the two things I'm most concerned about. And then, of course, from a numbers perspective, the monthly numbers are probably the most important. But I work on my monthly numbers within the week, and then I work on my long-term business plans within a year's time frame. So I look at my to-do list and I go, is this getting me towards my weekly goal of getting done? That's stuff that can totally be bitten off in a nice, easy to swallow bite that's big enough that it's going to keep me busy. And the year is what keeps me on the right path. So I'm not like walking down into a forest somewhere that has nowhere even related to the goal of what I want to be. So if you'll take that list and make sure that it meets that criteria, you may actually find you can cut stuff off the list just based off of that. And then, of course, anything you can delegate to somebody who is more competent than you are in that particular regard. So if it's profitable for you to hire an accountant to do something for you, by all means, do it. It's going to get done faster and better. And I find that sometimes we as technicians, we end up getting involved in stuff that we really have no business doing. For example, my favorite one is the website. So many people who have no business learning how to do CSS or HTML or whatever, they get so involved in that. And I go, wow, if you had spent $2,000 and hired a web designer to do that, what could you have done with the 4 years of your life that it took to do that? And it's maybe a hindsight 2020 thing, but like, is that really what you want to specialize in? Because that's weird. Like, you should start that kind of a business if that's what you want to specialize in. And it's funny, you laugh at people. I know in the window cleaning world, our best customers are the ones who tried cleaning their windows on their own, and then they would hire us and go, God, that was not worth it. And I'm sure it's the same carpet cleaning people who go out and get the rug doctor down at Walmart. They do their carpets, they suck, they call you, and now they've damaged their carpets beyond repair, and you're like, why didn't you just call a professional? Well, in your morning ritual, that's what you've got to do, is figure out, is this better done by a professional? Because this has been on my list for 4 days now, and it is killing my productivity. Maybe it's worth shelling out the money. Maybe it's worth making a trade arrangement with somebody. Be creative. That's the whole beauty of taking a little bit of time to strategize before you walk into battle every day. So, or walking out on the basketball court, right? So I could talk about systems forever. I love love systems. Specifically, I have a certification program for my employees. I could talk about that for 7 days straight and never finish. Like I could just go on and on. I love them. But I don't want to get too deep into stuff. In fact, I was hoping that we can get to Q&A sooner. So I'm gonna kind of leave that where it's at, and hopefully some of those strategies are something that will be useful for you. But I want to give you something concrete as an example about a system. So obviously with responsive bid being a product that I invented, a lot of people call me up and want to talk about bidding. And I love talking about bidding. In fact, it's probably one of my favorite subjects, because it used to be one of those things where I had to go out and do all the quotes myself, whether it was over the phone or in person, didn't matter. Nobody else was competent enough to handle it. And there's a good reason for it. When a job gets bid, you have to kind of live with those consequences, sometimes just through the duration of that job, but maybe it's for the duration of that customer's, longevity with your company. So you have to be very careful when you're bidding. And I think it's a perfect hot button to talk about systematizing, because it's also one of the only things that your business does for free that involves real travel, real employee time, and it's huge from that perspective. So your company goes out and does work and bids work, right? Now I know there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the office, and I get it. I showed you the org chart. I mean, I know that. But I used to think that when I'm committing to a bid, it needs to be me. I need to see it in person and do all this stuff. Well, it became very obvious that I was drowning myself. I was the huge bottleneck. People were calling up. So I got 10 bid requests today. I was able to do 8 of them. I got 10 more bid requests. I got to add the other 2. Now I'm only able to get 8 of those done. Before you know it, I got 4 before I even started the next day. And so it was just piling up, and it was really getting out of control. I just couldn't keep up with it. Not only that, but your new business that's being trained to be brought in, if I'm not giving them an awesome bidding experience, then not only do they not have the price in order to be able to say yes or no, but if they have to wait a long time, that's starting to taint my company in one way or another. And then the other thing is the actual cost, the actual proposal of what I give, just that is marketing. When you give your price to a customer, that's what they see. So I never felt like I could entrust an employee with it. So this is what I used to do. I used to go out and say, okay, customer, here's my bid sheet, which actually, if you look, it was actually an invoice that I would just write an invoice, and then I would write down in time out, I would write bid. You see that there at the bottom there? I would write bid. That is so funny. In fact, you can see I wrote the phone number there on the sheet. You can see that I would say, okay, ma'am, you had 72 panes, you had 8 oversized panes, you had 13 screens, and you wanted your house and your pool deck power wash. We'll do that for $199. And then I would just do the multiplication there, and then I would add it all up and say, here's the total of what what we can do for you. And the customer would look, so you'd see that $279 was for the windows, and then $478 there below was the total. This is such a joke. Like, it's embarrassing for me to look at. Like, I can't believe anybody ever bought from me. Like, I really can't. That is so disgusting. But the other thing that would happen is people would go, tell you what, I think it's ridiculous that you're charging me $39 to clean the screens. If you'll do the screens for free, I'll do the job. And I would like, okay, cool, I got the work, yay. And then I would give them a $40 discount. So this was bad. This was really bad. And of course no employees could do it, because you had to be a freaking rocket scientist to even understand what the bid meant, let alone give it. So what I did was I realized I've got to do something better than that. So I invented this other new system. There's a spreadsheet. You can do it on your smartphone. Back in the day, this worksheet was actually a screenshot, I believe, off of a BlackBerry. Back in the day, you guys remember the BlackBerry storm? Yeah, that's what I had. And then what I would do is I would just put the specs into it, and it would kick out the prices, and then I would package up my services. So you can see in the middle there, I got a basic, a deluxe, and a premium offering that I would give to the customer. So in the basic service, we'd clean the windows in and out. Deluxe, we'd do them in and out, vacuum out the tracks, and wash and seal all the screens. And then the premium, we would do all that, plus we would house wash their whole house, and then we'd give a rainy day guarantee that got better and better throughout the packages. What I found is that not only did I never get math wrong ever again, but I found that people would upsell themselves all the time to a better package, or the people who I normally would have lost on price, by showing them a basic package, I would sometimes collect a new customer based off of just the basic offering. Or I would also find that nobody was haggling anymore. No one would look at the deluxe for 162, as if I wrote the one, so I'd write the prices into this. It was just a carbon copy sheet. That's all this was, just a carbon copy sheet. I would find that people would go, I'll take the deluxe for 162. They would never say, I'll take the deluxe, but can you do it for 125? Right? No one ever did that. Why? Because I didn't line item everything. So by simplifying it to give the bid and simplifying it to give to the customer, I was able to make something, a boundary, right? You have to work within these constraints, but the prices that was kicking out were getting accepted. So what I did was I immediately raised my prices per item just to see if I would get more kickback. And I was timid at first, so I only raised them a tiny bit. Nobody ever pushed back. Like, wow, that's awesome. Okay, well, I'm going to raise them a little more. Nobody pushed back. It was the same exact kind of close rate I was getting before. People were upselling themselves more. I was getting higher ticket prices. Like, this is awesome. Before long, I'm like, well, this is so easy. My employees could do this. Because what was happening is they'd be at a customer's house doing a job, and the neighbor would come over and ask for a bid. And my employee would go, let me call the office. Then I would drive out to the place where my employees just were so that I could give a quote. Well, I'm like, well, I'll just send this spreadsheet to my guys. They can use it on their phones. I'll give them the sheet, and they can just fill in the numbers and give these quotes on the fly. Then I started seeing that their close rates were every bit as high as mine were. Like, and then I made this sheet carbon copy so that the people would have their copy, and then we wouldn't have to call anything into the office. We'd just turn in the bids later on. The office was up to date. That's when I realized how magical this thing was. Like, wow, that's awesome. And then I know I haven't talked much about it, but these disclaimers on the back, this is kind of the cover your butt stuff, which is super important. Not only does it like truly cover our butts for circumstances that may be outside of our control, but the other cool thing it does is it makes it so that our customers realize we're not like that guy that's out promising the world and over promising and gonna under deliver. Like, small print, I believe, sells just as much as the actual pricing or anything else that you do in your marketing. That fine print shows this isn't our first rodeo, and you're going to have a very clear understanding of what you get. I don't know that a lot of people even read it. And it's actually got kind of some funny stuff written in there. The reason we do it is so that people understand how human our company is, because we want to have a cool vibe. So that example right there, if you go to responsibid.com, you can go download it for free. It's our free package. Download it. It's just a Photoshop PSD. You can get it yourself and download it. It's totally not going to make sense probably to your particular industry, but it'll give you boilerplate text and ways of laying stuff out so that you can kind of jump in and do that. And hopefully that helps. This is just one little area, but the thing is that I know a lot of people worry like, oh, my customers are really high end. Well, then for Pete's sake, your high end customers, when they go to a store to buy stuff, they're used to buying good, better, best options. You know, when they go to buy their Ferrari, that Ferrari has several different options that they can have. You know, the deluxe version, the whatever version of that particular Ferrari. I haven't bought a lot of Ferraris myself, so I'm not really well versed in all the ways they do it. But I'm just telling you that sell to your people the way they're used to being sold to, and you'll find that it's going to scale a lot better. And now that my employees can bid better than I can, and we've created an actual software that does the bidding, that actually will automatically follow up with the person and give you reports on what marketing is bringing in the highest close rates and the highest ticket prices and blah, blah, blah. It's pretty neat stuff. I'm really proud of what we designed in Responsibid, but if you don't want to buy my product, at least try the free paper template and see how that system works. And hopefully you come up with a bunch of other things in your business that you need. As you've thought about things, one of the things that our Responsibid groups do that I really, really like and I think is awesome, it kind of comes with a bunch of business owners that are all business minded and trying to grow their businesses, is that they interact with each other. We actually have a community with our members. And it's not always about bidding. In fact, you know, they do talk about bidding, of course, but a lot of the stuff they talk about has nothing to do with bidding because they're excited to talk to other people who are forward thinking and shooting down ideas that other people have tried, maybe giving people new ideas that they could do in their own business, things that worked in their market but maybe haven't worked in other markets. So I love that our community at ResponsiBid, you know, in all the different industries that they're in, can all give each other really great feedback inside of our private groups. And to me, that's probably the thing we need to end this on, is that you as a business owner have a lot of stuff going on, but you get to build a game for your employees to play. And you can reward them, not always monetarily. In fact, a basket, when you are out on the court and you shoot a basket, that thrill of scoring a point has nothing to do with money. And humans don't need money. They need enough money to stay alive. But after that, it's been scientifically proven that we get more thrill in life from experiences and from recognition and from just being able to have interaction with other human beings. So hopefully you had some ideas on things that you can do to gamify your business. You've had some ways. We know we reward our employees based on how much production they do, based on how many proposals they give out in a week, you know, various different things. But at ResponsiBid, with the different business owners who are all kind of self-accountable people, they oftentimes will break up into mastermind groups. So consider that as well. If you haven't read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, at least do a Google search and look up mastermind groups. Maybe find 3 or 4 other business owners who are in different industries. Ways to hold yourself accountable, come up with new ideas, things you can systematize. But the beautiful thing about all the stuff we've talked about today is every time you build a system, it's not dead, it's alive. You can keep changing your systems. But any energy you put into building a system, it's done. From that point on, it's off your plate. And you are systematically, by going in and doing these things, you are clearing your plate off so that you can focus on the things that you either A, need to be focusing on, or even better, is the things that you want to be focusing on. So that's my advice to you. Hopefully this has all been really useful information for you guys. I love this topic and I'm super passionate about it. You can go to customerservicefactory.com. I have a video blog. I talk about other specific things that I've wished I'd known when I started my business. But Troy, that's all I had. Hopefully I covered anything. Troy, if you've got any questions, or if anybody else has any questions, I'm more than happy to stick around and answer anything for anybody. I could talk about this all day.
All right. First, Curt, I want to say thank you for taking the time to meet with us, to talk with us. Again, like I said earlier, Curt travels around the country. He teaches business owners how to automate their businesses, how to systemize it, and it really is important. I want to share with you guys a couple of thoughts I had while I was listening to Curt today, and hopefully, you guys wrote down some of your thoughts and have looked at ways that you can grow your business and make it better, because I came up with a bunch for myself. Because really what Curt's talking about is one of the biggest issues I see. We've worked with thousands of business owners over the past 14 years, and a lot of our customers have been with us for like 10, 14 years. And I think that's because of our customer service. I mean, that's what we've been told, is like, wow, you guys give great customer service. And one of the problems we've run into is, well, how do we replicate that, How do we get our employees to give that same experience that we would give? Because any of you who know Ron know that he answers his phone 24/7. The poor guy took a vacation to Hawaii, and he got calls every morning at 3 a.m., and he picked them up. And how do you translate that into your team? So, why is this important? What I realized during this thing is that I can't grow my business if I can't replicate myself and replicate the experience that I give my customers. So for all you owners out there that maybe are, owner operators, you're going to hit a cap of how much business you can do, how many clients you can handle, how much money you can make, unless you can replicate yourself. And the only way to replicate yourself is through the systems and through automation, like Curt's talking about. So you really need to think about that. Now, can you say, oh, well, I'll wait till I hire my first employee? Absolutely not. You can't wait until you hire your first employee, because you know what? Like Curt said, they're going to set the rules, and it's not going to be the way you want it done. So you've got to replicate yourself and put the system in place before that employee comes on. If you've already got 100 employees, I noticed we have Sheila Webster. She owns Network Automotive. I think she owns 5 or 6 different automotive centers. She's got a lot of employees. And I've personally been into her locations, and her employees do a great job. She's got some great systems in place to make sure that everybody gets treated really well. So she's just someone who's on this webinar that I know has done a great job. I hope she was
on this webinar?
Yeah, she's on the webinar.
I have my vehicle at Network Automotive right now, and I don't know if she has the one in Apache Junction. My guys always take our vans into there. But I just want to vouch right now for the fact that they've already won my business for life. I will never take my car to anyone but Brent. He is awesome because I don't know if he learned it from Sheila or not, but what they're doing down there from an honesty perspective, which is of course the stigma with automotive shops, she's got it going on. So that's so cool to know she's here.
Yeah, they're great. So the other thing I learned is, are your employees, if you have employees, are they meeting your standard, and how are you testing that? In talking to Curt, again, I told you this guy has a lot of successful businesses, and one of the things I learned from him was that he uses a app called Voxer, which is kind of like a push to talk, but you can do big group ones. And once a week, and correct me if I'm wrong, Curt, once a week he does surveys after every single job that's done by one of his employees. And once a week, he does a Voxer with all of his employees, so everybody in the company gets to hear how this employee did on his jobs, how the customers rated this other employee, and then they can give feedback and they can talk about how to improve it. So he holds them accountable. So if you do have employees, I'm asking you, how are you making sure they're meeting the standards, and how do you correct them if they're not? I don't know if you have anything to add on that, Curt.
Yeah, we pay our employees based on customer satisfaction, so surveys are a very important part. We don't want to pay our employees based on number of hours, like hourly employees, and we don't want to pay them based on speed that they work with, like just piecework. So we've flipped the whole script. We made our basket a different basket. But I just actually read those those testimonials over Voxer this morning, and all the surveys went out. And of course, this week was an awesome week. There's nothing but 100% good surveys, so there's a lot of cheering and fun that goes on there. But being super transparent and systematizing that transparency, that is probably the biggest motivating factor. My guys, paycheck or not, aside, that Voxer, testimonial readings, we call them, they're actually called dramatic readings by Curt Kempton, because I have made them a lot more fun, but we can get into that another time. But the point is that at the end, I just get flooded with stuff from the employees laughing and having fun, and it's exciting. And if there is something bad that we need to talk about, we can be really candid and really frank, and it's like it provides a more family atmosphere, as opposed to like go into your cubicle and you can come out when I tell you can come out kind of thing. So.
Excellent, good job. So I had just a couple more things I wanted to hit before we finish here. The other thing I was thinking about during this your presentation, Curt, was what can I systematize in my business? And the ones that kind of came up to me was one, workflow. If you're doing the same thing over and over and over again, how can you make it better? How can you systematize it to make it better? And how can you make it so that when an employee takes over that job, that they do it exactly the way you want it done? We've had to do that in our business. We do a lot of video training sessions, training videos that we use with our employees. So at any moment, they can go back and look and see me showing them exactly how I want them to do a specific task, so that there's no variations. It doesn't matter if I'm doing the task or one of my employees is doing the task, it's done exactly the same. The other thing is customer service. How do you systemize your customer service so that the same experience happens every single time, no matter who's dealing with your customer? That's so important, because all it takes is one bad experience and that customer's out the door. Okay. The other thing too is follow up with customers. How are you following up with your customers? Can you create a system so that every customer gets followed up with before the job, after the job, 6 months down the road when you're trying to get them to do, get more work out of them? How can you systemize that so the experience is the exact same for everybody, And then how do you automate it so that you don't have to manually try to remember when to follow up with all these customers? And then, of course, marketing to me is the last one. So I wanted to kind of go through a couple of things. One thing that I thought of, automate your emails. You know, look at your inbox over the next couple of days. These are things I want you to do to figure out how you can make your business better. Look at your inbox over the next couple of days. Ask yourself, am I sending out the same email over and over and over again to different people? You know, if it is, figure out a way to automate those emails, you know, whether it's a system like Constant Contact or MailChimp. Responsibid has an amazing system for following up with, you know, through the bidding process, through once the customer actually schedules the appointment, all the way to following up after. It's really important. So emails, I got to tell you guys, when I wake up in the morning, I've got about 200 emails every single day. Before I roll out of bed, I got 200 emails sitting there for me. So I've got to have, I can't, and again, a lot of them may be the same, you know, people asking very similar questions. I have to automate those responses so that I'm not typing the same response all day long. And look for ways to do it outside of email as well. The other thing, automate surveys. You know, are you doing follow-up with your customers? Do you know how your employees are doing? Figure out how to automate surveys. There's stuff out there like SurveyMonkey, a bunch of options that you can use to send out surveys to your customers, find out how you're doing, find out how your employees are doing. But make sure it's automated so that it happens every single time. And then the other thing, obviously, which we're huge on here at On Top Local, is automating your marketing. And you guys know the post place. You've all heard us talk about the post place, so I won't spend much time on that. But you need to automate your marketing, because either you need to be sitting in front of your computer and working your butt off all day long marketing your business so that you can bring more dollars in the door so that you can hire more employees to take care of those customers, or you need to automate that so that you don't have to do that, but it's happening every single day for you. And then again, we talked about systemizing. You know, systemize your customer service, systemize the experience, so that's always the same no matter what. And then I like the last thing was I liked what Curt talked about, which was pricing. Standardize your pricing so that there's no question. You know, your employee shouldn't have to come back to you and say, you know, and come back to me and say, hey Troy, what is it going to cost for this customer, you know, for us to take care of this for the customer? Standardize the prices. Make sure there's options out there so that the customers have a choice, and it'll make your job so much easier. Because I know from growing our business, I've always kind of been one of the focal points of the business as far as employees coming to me, and it's my nature. I'm kind of a control freak, and I've got to let that go in order, one, to grow my business, two, to create an environment that's good for my employees where they feel responsible and they feel good about their job because they know what they're doing and they're not just bowing down to me and asking me the same question over and over again. But those are just a few of the things that I got from your presentation today, Curt.
Cool. I'm glad you got that. It's I will say you did bring up Responsibid, and I'm gonna just quickly share. I think it's awesome what you guys are doing as far as making it a discounted option available on your website of Responsibid, because that's the point, is that if you're going to do something really, really well all the time, you're going to have bad days, and you're going to, you know, the follow-up of the emails and stuff. You know, Responsibid focuses a ton on automating the follow-up after a bid, before a job, after a job, and in the future to get more work. And so if you guys have really jumped on board, and I know you guys are obviously crazy about automating the marketing, and Responsibid's about automating the quoting and follow-up and sales process. So you guys have put on some packages for your members there, and hopefully this is a nice plug-and-play way for people to get those systems and those automated things going so that they can immediately get that off of their to-do list and get that off their plate and move on to something else. But if it doesn't work, if it's something that they're not interested in doing or whatever, I am more interested in the fact that people understand what their goals are and they're doing something every single day to get them closer to it.
Absolutely. Thanks, Curt. I want to thank Curt for that, because one thing that we don't want to do in our webinars, and I've been very adamant about it with people, is we're not just going to do sales webinars where you come in and you just get pitched. That's not what we're about. And that was one of the things that Curt said, listen, I don't even care. We don't even need to mention my product as far as I'm concerned. He goes, I'm just happy to talk about, systemizing and automating. It's something I love. So, it's up on the screen. If you guys need an automated bidding system, this is the best one I've ever found, and that's why we've teamed up with Curt and asked him to come. But again, the really important part is looking at your business, figuring out what you can do to grow it, and where you can tackle your biggest problems that hit every day. I think we do have at least 1 or 2 questions, so I'm going to ask Kelly to come on for real quick, and she'll ask those questions to you, Curt.
Okay.
Hi guys, currently we don't have any questions, but if we want to wait just a minute, we can see if anyone does have questions. And everyone, you can post those in the questions tab or in the chat box in the control panel, and we'll be sure to get that to Curt and Troy.
Right.
Okay, excellent. I know that I thought I saw one come in where someone was asking what was the name of the customer website.
Oh.
Did you already answer that one, Kelly?
Yes, and I didn't know the answer to that. So what is the name to the customer website?
Yeah, it's customerservicefactory.com.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Excellent. Thanks, Curt. All right. Well, again, if you guys have any other questions, you can always email them in to us, and we'll be happy to answer them. And again, Curt, I want to thank you for coming and spending time. And really, to all of our customers, again, please take some time, think about what Curt taught us today, and look at ways that you can automate your business. I'm telling you, we've done it over the last couple of years in our business, and I can't even tell you the difference that it's made as far as growth in the company. It's exponential. It just really is. Once you automate something and you can actually focus on another part of your business, it just grows exponentially. So again, Curt, thanks for taking the time to be with us today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, guys, thanks a lot, and we'll see you guys on our next webinar.